Say it louder.
You have to just keep marching on because the doors will open. And, you know, if you believe in yourself, it's gonna happen.
Hello and welcome. Today I'm joined by, you all already know her, Liz. How do you pronounce your second name actually, Liz?
Besanson.
Besanson.
It's actually a French last name.
I was just gonna ask actually because it's a lovely last name. So Liz is a lifestyle photographer, an interior design genius, and a DIY queen, if you didn't already know. Thankfully and gratefully, talking out of her day to come and talk to us here and go in a bit about her career and how she got started and everything. I want a good long answer.
All right, well, you guys are going to get the whole full spectrum of the tidbits of what I've encountered throughout my journey in life. And, you know, I just have to say how I got started was exactly that. It's been journeys. It's been journeys of trying to figure out who I wanted to be growing up. You know, I was always an artistic child. But I grew up I was born in the 70s, and back then, you know, I didn't have structure from like parents. I was raised by my grandmother, and you know, she was an older woman, and really I was this creative kid wanting to do creative, you know, I wanted to do hair and I wanted to do makeup. I basically wanted to go to cosmetology school. You know, off the bat, she was like, no, she wanted me to go to college. She wanted me to pursue something of significance so that I can have a better life, a career, make money, stable money. You know, her idea of being creative was sort of saying, that's not going to be anything that's going to give you a future. You're not going to make any money doing this. You're just pretty much gonna waste your life. You know, that was her mindset. And while, you know, a lot of people still believe that, you know, the creative world or the creative outlets are not, you know, they're not anything that they want their kids to pursue because they don't see stability in that.
Very true. It's very true.
Here I enrolled in a business school, you know, just to try to like, you know, maybe gravitate to maybe she was right and maybe kind of go in that direction. And what happened was I was miserable. I worked corporate for years in New York City. I was raised in Manhattan in New York City, and I had amazing jobs. At the age of 17, I was already making $40,000 a year.
What?
I worked for lawyers. I worked for insurance companies. I worked for huge magazine outlets. I worked for Condé Nast, Ladies Home Journal. I worked for serious, you know, companies, and I have quite an extensive resume that I don't really necessarily put that out there because, you know, it's not anything that, you know, I like to, you know, talk about because it's not where I'm at today. But it is my past, but I'm gonna get to that, of how that kind of anchored where I am today.
Sounds like a very exciting past.
Yeah, I mean, I was miserable. I could not for the life of me find any part of waking up enjoyable. I dreaded Monday mornings. I dreaded seeing those people. I dreaded the workload, the 9-to-5 humdrum. Here I was just unsure of what creativity, you know, of how to express myself rather. I always wanted to express myself, and I would do it in ways of, you know, decorating my apartment, decorating, you know, cooking meals. Like I always did something that has some kind of creative outlet to it. And that's how I kind of started. I started doing little things that sort of inspired me. So if I was in the workforce and I couldn't be creative doing that, I was taking it and decorating my apartment, and I was cooking, and I was using fashion and style to sort of put that creativity in me because it's who I was. I got married I was really young. I was in my early 20s when I got married and I had my daughter, Kelsey. Kelsey Simone is my daughter. For those of you that don't know, she is another YouTuber influencer on this platform.
And so beautiful. So beautiful.
We're quite a team. I actually manage my daughter now, which is quite the story of how that journey happened, but I'll get back to that as well. After I got married and I had my daughter, I quickly just said, you know, I wanted to stay home with my daughter and I wanted to raise her. I didn't want to send her to to daycare and have anybody else raise my child. And I looked for ways at home to sort of supplement our income, and which is funny because I started back in that time, eBay had just surfaced.
No way.
The thing at the time, and you know, nobody knew about eBay, but here eBay surfaced and everybody was just like eBay, you know, and I didn't know anything about it, but I started learning how to source vintage and how to you know, vintage jewelry, and I just started kind of, you know, loving the things that I was personally buying for myself. I was kind of selling.
You have such an eye though for vintage things. You do. You have such an amazing eye for it.
So this is a journey that is leading me to where I am today. So all of these things in my past sort of all play an integral part of where I am today, and it all didn't happen at once. It's sort of like all of these things just kind of like formed and shaped, you know, the where I am today, what I'm doing today, the success I have today. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. And so I started doing that to supplement our income. And then as Kelsey got older, you know, I then decided, I made this decision that I wanted to just be a creative. I said, you know what? I'm just gonna go for it. And I enrolled in cosmetology school. What I wanted to do back when I was a young girl in high school, and my grandmother was like, no, don't do it, don't do it. I said, you know what? I was 20 or 21 years old when I said, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go and enroll in cosmetology school. And I went and I learned how to do hair and I learned how to do makeup. And I really love the makeup portion more so than the hair. And fast forwarding, just to cut this one short, I became a professional makeup artist for over 15 years. Yeah, I worked with Lancome. Lancome gave me a nice platform, and I worked with the national makeup artist. I worked in upstate New York, and I did makeup for events, and that was so cool. I got to meet so many cool people. But you know, Lancome, it just set me up for wanting more. And so when we moved to Delaware, I actually pursued another position with MAC Makeup, and I was a makeup artist for MAC Cosmetics for about 5 years. And yeah, so I stayed there for a little bit, and while I was working with MAC was when I was gifted a camera, and it was a birthday gift that I received from my husband. And I was quite excited about it because, again, as a creative, any creative tool you put in my hands, I will try to figure it out. And I knew nothing about photography. I just loved what I just had an eye for light, and I loved seeing things, and I would see things a certain way and be like, oh, that would be a good picture. And so it didn't take me long before, when I started playing with the camera, that I was booking these girls to come in and do test shoots with me. I actually put out an ad on Craigslist for a girl to come into my home, and I would set my dining room up. No lie. I would set my dining room up. I would move my chairs, my tables out of the way, and I would put a backdrop up, and I bought like a cheapy $99 set of lights, and I made it look so pro. And this girl would come, you know, she was an aspiring model, wasn't just some weirdo off the street. She was an aspiring model. She was trying to get her book going. And so, you know, it was an even trade. She would build my book as a photographer, and I would build her book up as a model. And so I started there. And I started on this page, and if you guys are near or close to my age, you remember a site called Model Mayhem. That was like the Instagram of its time. That was like mid 90s. No, sorry, early 2000, 2002, 2003, 2004, around there. And it was the, like, if you wanted to be and showcase your work, that was the place where you got props. Like, your work got put on that top page, you were good. Like, you were the hot stuff. So I remember posting pictures on there, you know, on this platform, and my pictures would hit the top.
No way. Wow.
Yeah, my pictures would get voted, because I think that's how it used to, if I could remember. Your pictures would get put in, and then people would vote on how liked it was. And if it had so much engagement, it would be boosted up as the top pick of that day, the week, I don't remember. But my pictures would.
How everything is these days, isn't it? Like, you know, your Instagram post, if it doesn't get much
it's
likes
almost
straight
the
away.
same. Yeah, it's almost the same. And so my pictures would get boosted up there, and then I started getting notoriety. Now, funny thing was, there were also people scouting on that site. So it wasn't just a platform for photographer model. There were people seeking talent on this site.
Okay.
And so I would be putting my work there. It took about a full year. Like, I was really started to get my work up and going on there. I had a lot of traction. People were getting my name was getting a little bit of a buzz on the platform. And I remember having this one lady who owned a clothing business in Philly. And she reached out to me because she saw my work and really fell in love with my work. And she says, hey, I'm looking for a photographer and I need to shoot my next collection. Can we meet? Can we talk? And I said, oh my gosh, this was my first ever real paid gig. So I didn't think much of it. I for sure thought, yeah, this is too good to be true.
Yeah.
But sure enough,
the setup.
I know. Yeah, I'm very, like, especially that platform, which seemed to be kind of, you know, a little dodgy. You know, you never know who you were meeting sometimes on this platform. Some people were good and some people were just a little out there. Anyway, I trusted that she would meet with me, and she did. And she offered me a permanent position, just shooting once or twice a month, I think it was, for her clothing company. And my work got featured in her catalogs. And so much so that I was making great income with the job I was doing for her. I had opened up my very own studio. And
oh my god, this is so exciting.
so the photography career kind of just exploded right after that. I started networking with model agencies at that time. I had contacted every model agency that was in my area and my surrounding area, and I presented my work to them, and I would show them, you know, all the test shoots that I would do with these models. And they fell in love with my work, and then they would send me models. They would send me really good, strong models. And so my book got even built more. And so, you know, after that, you know, work started coming to me. I started to really make a name for myself in my area, number one, and just in general in like the model scene. People would recognize my headshots. They would recognize. Then I took it a step further. I'm telling you, the ambition in me was just like no other. I started taking my work.
It's good.
And because I knew makeup, because I knew hair, because I used to style everybody, that led me to shooting editorial work. I did all the hair in the beginning. In the beginning, I did all the hair. I did all the makeup. I would thrift shop. Because, you know, I was a thrifter. So I would thrift all of the styling, all the jewelry, the dresses, the shoes, the bags. With a very, very small budget, I would go and I would thrift these materials, and I had a vision. My head was my own mood board. Like, I saw what I wanted to see in the photography spectrum, and then I went and I did it. I booked this girl, and I said, here's our plan. This is what the shoot's gonna look like, you know. And at the time, I couldn't afford to pay for you know, artists at the time. So what we did, I don't know if this works anymore. It was great back then, but we would collab. We would collab, and I would get a girl who would come and do makeup for me, and I would get a hair person who would do makeup for me, just so that I can just focus on the photography portion.
Yeah.
I had now started to take a step back from doing everything myself when I was doing editorial, and let some other talent. I started putting little teams together, and they were cool with that because they respected my work and I respected their work. It became a really cool union. You know, we were like, yes, let's do this editorial. And we would book the girl and we would do our thing, and I would schedule, you know, like 2 to 4 hours to get it all done. I normally banged out the shoot in like 2 hours. I'm a pretty quick shooter. And a lot of my work got published. And so I would go and I would submit my work to indie magazines. So my work has been in a lot of indie magazines, as well as some magazines that you probably would have heard of, like Zinc magazine, Rain magazine. I was in Italia, Vogue. So there's been a lot of publications.
Oh my goodness, that is really cool. That is really cool.
Really cool.
Thank you. I mean, I'm proud of those. Those are stepping stones, you know, and you know,
and
people always ask me,
do you like the shoots from them, like the images that you use for them? Really? Oh my god, that is so cool.
Yeah, I kept all my magazines, and I have like stacks of the work that I've been in, so I'm proud of that, you know.
Should be.
But it goes without saying that it didn't happen overnight, you know. And if I were to just encourage anybody out there who's living the dream and wants to dream, persistence pays off, because you have to keep at it. And I'll tell you, the number one enemy of anybody aspiring to be anything in the creative field is doubt. When you doubt yourself, it kills the dream. And you have to always keep going. There's going to be things that will knock down your ability to see yourself as successful. There's going to be voices, there's going to be discouragement thrown left and right, and you just have to keep pushing past that. I think that if you're mentally strong to just push past all of that, you're going to make it. Because I always say you have to be stubborn. You have to be stubborn in how you see yourself, and don't let anything and anybody knock your dream away from you.
Yes.
You keep going.
Say it louder.
You have to just keep marching on, because the doors will open. And you know, if you believe in yourself, it's gonna happen. And so now let's fast forward a little bit. And so I did the photography. And here I am in my own studio now. I'm shooting editorials for people, and I'm still working with model agencies. I'm contracted by them. And then all of a sudden, my 16-year-old daughter gets a phone call. Well, they called me on behalf for her, and they said, we want to talk to you about your daughter. And I said, oh, what about? And they said, well, we're from an agency and we see the potential in your daughter, and she's been putting out these YouTube videos, and she's been, you know, quite the topic of our conversation. We love how she engages, and we see a future for her, and we would like to maybe help you in managing her.
That must have been a lovely call.
And I had to take a step back there. Now, mind you, this was 2009, okay, 2010, somewhere around, 16, I don't know. We'll have to do the math later. I'm not good at math. So whatever, she's 21 now, so whatever that year was, is when they called me. And, you know, I didn't know anything about YouTube, guys. Completely zero, nothing about YouTube.
And look at you now.
And now I know, but I didn't know. And so they called me and they wanted to manage my daughter. And I said, well, let me just think about this for a second, because I know nothing about this world. And then after the phone call, we sort of agreed to touch base later. I hung up and I asked my daughter, Kelsey, I said, what is this all, you're doing videos? She goes, yeah, Mom, I do videos. She goes, I put them up on the internet. And I said, what do you do videos about? I didn't even know she was doing videos. She says, Mom, I've been doing videos since I was 12. And I said, since you were 12? She started showing me her videos, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're like really good. She was a huge Justin Bieber fan, and so she was a believer. And so she did this video based on his new Purpose album. And it was a reaction video. And the video went viral. And it was, I guess her commentary was so funny that it went viral. And that was the video that got, I mean, it went everywhere. She went literally from, I think, 50K to 1 million. You know, all it took were for brands to see that this little girl had a future. And so they started sending her PR. And then as PR came in, she started to represent brands. And then as she started to represent brands, other brands started to see what she was talking about and her reviews, and basically her ability to improve even in her video format and how she presented herself. And then she took it further and further and got better and better. And that's with anything that we do, you know, you just keep going at it and you keep getting better and better. And then now she's working for the top brands in the world. She's working for Dior and, you know, so many cool brands, Tiffany's. And, you know, I count my blessings every single day, because it is not something that we asked for. It is not something that we even dreamed or imagined. It's really based on hard work, good ethics, you know, good morals, and just really thriving to just be consistent. Be consistent with whatever you're doing. Don't give up. You just keep pushing. And, you know, the sky's the limit. You know, if you think you can do it, you can do it. You really can. If you think you could do it, you can do it. Basically, that's it. And so now my studio at the time, when all of this started to happen, I was like, how can I do this? How can I be a part in her life and really just make sure that she's taken care of in the right way? So just to go back to that management, you know, we didn't do the management. I actually decided to manage her because I thought it was for her own best interest that I took care of her. Now I want to go, so I managed my daughter full time. And so I want to kind of piggyback to the beginning where I said, you know, I hated the corporate world, but it served a purpose. It served a purpose because I'm now able to take what I learned then and bring it into my management side for my daughter. So, you know, I kind of look at it as like, wow, that was something I actually needed. I didn't want it, but I needed it. And it plays such a strong part in how I can push and guide her. So all that experience, the telephone calls, the being direct and reading contracts and knowing legal terminology and insurance and all of that stuff plays such a huge role in what I do right now. And so just to kind of like now start bringing this whole story to an end, I decided to open up my own channel just out of sheer just creativity. I never planned on, you know, having a crowd, a community. You know, everything that I do is out of sheer passion because I'm a creative. And even if one person sees it, I honestly don't even care. I do it just to keep that creative juice flowing out of me. And that's something that if you're creative, don't ever stop creating. Always keep creating. Try different forms of creating, because I love to dip my hands in so many things. I mean, I cook, I style, I do photography, I do makeup, you know, and there's some that I love more than others, but I've tried all of them and there's so many that I love. And it's like, I can't really choose what I love the most. I just love creating.
What I like about you is you kind of share your knowledge with everyone. Like, you don't kind of keep it to yourself, you share it with, whether it be your DIY
I love that.
How to shoot like photography, which is actually very difficult.
Yeah.
Like anyone knows, if you've tried to shoot an Instagram post, you know, it's not as easy as it looks.
It's kind of funny that you said that because, you know, in the beginning, I needed help. I'm self-taught with everything. Other than makeup, I went to cosmetology school to do that, but no one taught me how to use a camera. No one taught me lighting. No one taught me any of that stuff. And I remember reaching out to people who were, peers in my circle. And I would remember writing them several times. Different people too, not just one person. Because, sometimes you can, oh, that person's grouchy, whatever. I would write various people and I never had a response. I would say, hey, that's cool lighting. How did you get that light? Did you use natural light? Did you use studio lighting? Like how was that achieved? That was so cool. And I remember just being just completely dismissive. Like people would just avoid me. People would write me and ask me, how did you do that? What app did you use? What kind of toning did you put on that in Photoshop? And I remember going back to those feelings and saying, I never want anybody to feel that. There is room for so much creativity out there. No one's going to take your job. I think that people need to relax and sit down. I will say that there's a lot of people that copy others, but I do believe that everyone knows the true McCoy. Everyone knows the real deal. There's always going to be those that will be inspired by you and not change one thing. They will do it exactly like you and not even give you credit for it either. But people are aware. And so there's always going to be that. So how do you handle that? You just keep shining brighter, because eventually people are going to see that there's only one you. No, they can try to be like you, but they can never succeed, right?
Yeah.
And so I always want to put out there any kind of advice that I can give, any kind of help, because I always hated that feeling that people just wouldn't respond. I'm like, there's no big deal in telling what app you use, what filter, what was that filter you? There's no competition in that. Just tell the person. If they ask a question, take the time to just respond. It's just how I am as a person, and I just wish other people were like that.
Because it's not a hard thing to do, just to type.
Nope. It doesn't cost anything but just some kindness. That's it.
It really is. And it's nice that you pass down your qualities,
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's so important that we raise our kids with how we want to be treated. I think this world is, just lacking a lot of that kindness and just thoughtfulness, I've always had that inside of me that we just do for each other and we see everybody as equal and just be a good person. That's pretty much how I live my life.
And it's free.
It's
free to be
And it's free. It costs nothing, kids.
So that's another good thing.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely a good way to be, and it comes true as well, even on your because I see you're very religious as well, and you post beautiful scriptures. Like, oh my goodness, they're so nice. Because I've seen on Kelsey's one of her blogs, like she reads a few scriptures every day, and I was like, I'd love to be able to do that, but like I just don't know if I'd be able to understand because some of the stories are very dark.
Yeah. Oh, the Old Testament is very dark.
Very dark.
But I think it's important that we motivate people too. The goodness comes from God, that, our relationship with God. And I think that when we have a relationship with Him, I think that you can naturally see it in a person. It exudes, it comes out. So when we're putting in good stuff, guess what comes out? Good stuff. If I can put out a scripture that's going to say, hey, God loves you, man. God loves you just the way you are. That can brighten somebody's day. You never know. Maybe that's the person's last day and they just needed to hear that. So I hold myself accountable to really, do what I believe God is wanting me to do. Is just to spread a good message and to share His love with the world.
And your house is beautiful as well.
Thank you.
And I love the bookcase behind it.
Oh,
nice.
yes.
Really nice.
Yes, this is our office. We do our little videos in here. Mostly Kelsey films in here a lot, but
it's beautiful. Like, it honestly looks like something out of Architectural Digest. I will say it till the day I die. Your house will be in Architectural Digest one day. Like, it's beautiful. Like, oh my goodness, like even the pictures you put up with the arched windows and the pillars and everything is just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Was that
this home is it's a French provincial home.
Nice.
So the architectural is very French. We have a traditional French stucco exterior, and the windows and all the arches here are very reminiscent to that period, and so it fits us perfectly. You have to think about what you do for a living and how those backdrops are going to play a key role in creating nice content, right? So we definitely we saw like a few homes, but this one resonated with us because it was more, especially Kelsey. She's very into the French architecture and all that. You'll see that kind of spill over in her feed. So it really blended both of our styles, because our styles are similar but different, if that makes any kind of sense. We love the minimalistic touches together, but she loves more of the French country, I would say, and I love more of the modern minimalism. But somehow there's a happy balance.
Yeah, they work very well together. Yeah, really well.
Yeah, there's a happy balance. Sometimes I'll buy something and she's like, "Oh no, put that away." That's hideous. And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And vice versa. I'm like, "That's just so old. I don't like it. Ew." And so she's like, "You don't know, Mom."
You can put it in your
So
room.
anyway, so sometimes we do go through that.
Yeah. But it's cool that you're both so into like the aesthetics as well, and having like a beautiful home and everything else.
Yeah, it's fun. We thrift a lot together too. I have to tell you a true story. She used to hate it.
Really?
I remember, she would literally throw a tantrum. She was like, "No, not again." I'm like, "Oh, please, just 10 minutes. I'll just go straight to the back and come back out." And she would dread it. And it wasn't until she started her own business, as her business grew and, she started to find her vibe, her style. Vintage obviously became something that she was familiar with, but didn't know how to adapt it to her own personal style. It did not take her long. She started hitting and finding cool things, and she started bringing them into her styling. So her thing is more like mixing the vintage with the high end. So the high-low, I like to call it. So that's sort of like her deal. And she does so well with that, because it's not only about labels, but it's about the sustainability of the vintage that she admires and loves, and the quality, the craftsmanship. But we also love going to antique shops, and now she'll help me with my other business, which is Vendy Collections.
Yes, congratulations, that's lovely.
Thank you. It started out as a jewelry company, and what happened
when
was
I seen that you started
jewelry.
adding furniture, I was like, I actually got so excited. I was like, oh my god.
I think you and everybody else, they were like, yes. Knowing what's trending in the design spectrum, and knowing what people are looking for, I have that in mind when I go in the stores, and I'm like, oh, really cool wavy candle holders are like trending right now. Let me go see if I can find that. Cool vessels are trending right now. Let me go see if I can find that. That's usually like my eyes are already kind of like laser focused. I'll go in
with a vision.
Yes, a vision. And I mean, because I tell you, if you go to these antique shops, it is like overwhelming. You'll see wall to wall to wall, and things are on the floor, and it's overwhelming. So I've trained my eye to know already what I'm looking for, and to just spot it, so I go right to it. And sometimes I'll see some unusual things that I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. That'll be a nice surprise I can add into the collection. So it's been so much fun. And, I honestly will just keep doing it because I love it. I really do.
Okay, so Liz, out of all your DIYs that you've done, which one has been your favorite? Because I know even myself, when you're doing like them kind of little projects, there's always one that you're like, oh, that turned out really well.
Okay, I'll say this. There's one I'm really proud of, and there's one that I really love. So the one I'm really proud of is because it's a new challenge I took on, was to sculpt with clay. And
was that the one that was on your story? That looked like something you'd buy in a shop.
Yeah, so I don't know. I was just inspired by like these French sort of like Parisian busts, and it was in my head, and I had clay because I had been doing some other clay projects with candle holders and whatever have you. And so I said, you know what? Let me try. I never learned sculpting. I've never seen any videos. I, just took some foil and I had wire, and I just went for it. And I never expected to have this turnout, I mean, I just kept going at it, and I was there till late at night. My husband's like, wow, you're really good. I'm like, I've never done this before. And I kept going and going, and I just went with the vision that was in my head. And I have to say, I'm so proud of that. And people were asking me people were asking to buy it. And I was like, no, I don't want to buy, I don't want to sell it because it's my first, it's sentimental. And while that's quite lovely, that's not the one that I actually love the most. I think my best DIY was the bookends that I did with the glass balls, the ornaments.
Yeah.
I just think because it's so my personality, it's more my style, my vibe, it's quirky. And it was just something that I was inspired by, that I wound up taking on and doing, and I loved the turnout. So while I'm proud of the clay, I'm most excited about those bookends.
Dude, I think it's very freeing though, even doing stuff like that, because you kind of have to take pleasure in the imperfections, and it kind of shows a bit more character. That's what I tell myself anyway.
I think every artist knows that there's imperfections, and my husband is also an artist, and I said, do you ever like your art, And he's like, I don't think any artist truly loves their own work. There's always a flaw that they see, it bugs them, and it's like, oh, I wish I should have changed that, or I wish I could have fixed that. So we're never truly happy, but I think that is the art of being an artist. That's just because you're always striving to get better, so you're wanting to overachieve what you last did. And it just keeps making you kind of stay on the ball, so I would say just go for it. Who cares? Put the flaws out there. You'd be surprised how many people would love it.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, now yours are just otherworldly. They're just in my eyes, they're perfect. They're so good. And out of all your accomplishments, Liz, because you have so many, what's been your biggest one to date?
Oh man, my biggest accomplishment. I'm just gonna throw that ball right over to the success of my daughter. I know it sounds kind of like, oh. But I have to say that everything that I have ever done, everything that I've ever been through has always been to show her the way. And I think in everything that I've done, my success has spilled into her success. And so she's my greatest sort of accomplishment, to see that I raised a kid who has such a good head on her shoulders, who is running her business. She is her own boss. I just help navigate her. She really is her own boss. She has her own mind. She has her vision. She has a plan for her future. She already has her future already sort of jotted down. And so I see that as coming from what I've been through and what I've been able to instill in her. And so many people say, oh, you're so good at photography, you're so good at this and that and the other. And, I do enjoy a lot of that. And I do see, that a lot of those things have been successful for me. But I've never really hit anything totally major in it. Okay, so I got in some publications and magazines and stuff like that. But, I've never been that so ambitious, if that makes any kind of sense. Some people just have a drive to go and just be something major, and I don't know. I'm happy taking the lowly place. I'm happy just doing what I'm doing and being humble, and so I always say that I can do a lot of things, and I can do a lot of things well. And I recognize that, but I'm not one to say that I've achieved anything or I've mastered anything, because I'm still always learning. I think the only thing that I've achieved that I'm able to be proud of and verbalize and say is how I raised my kid and how well she is doing and contributing to society.
I really loved your about story. Oh my goodness, I just found that so inspiring. And that's the part I was most excited to hear about, was where you started, the journey along the way, and where you are now. It's just so amazing to hear it directly from you as well. And I think people watching will find it so inspiring as well.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, because there is a lot involved in that, and I think that just the gist of all of that is the pursuit of doing what you love. And, you know, I was being obedient to my grandmother in not pursuing what I wanted to do right off the bat. And I went into business school. And while I wasn't happy there, it wound up playing an important role in my life. So sometimes if you're young and your parents are pursuing you to do something, you never know how that might play out later in life. And I always say when you're an adult and you can make your own decisions, you could always do later than what you wanted to do. So if you're not already doing it, you know, and you could always, there's so many things that you could always marry together. You know, I just feel like all these things that I do all blend beautifully together, you know, and even the business stuff just blends beautifully together with what I'm doing. Even just in business, when I deal with brands, my personal brands, my daughter's brands, like all of that knowledge has been so beneficial and so helpful. So, you know, just don't knock things sometimes. If you're younger and maybe your parents want you to get a degree, you never know how later in life that's going to play a role in your life. And like I said, you could always do things at another time. You know, there'll always be art schools and there'll always be creative things out there that you can tap into. You know, some people do it for a hobby. Like my husband has a full-time job and he's an artist at heart. He would rather stay home and do art with us and create content, but you know, he needs to work because we have a real life and we have bills to pay, and so he does that on the side, and he's happy that way. So, you know, there's always that happy medium where if you're creative, you can still make time for that in your life. You don't have to necessarily always throw it out the window because, let's say, you know, I'm a lawyer, so I have to go and do my job, but I'm really like a sculptor or whatever, and I want to do that. Do that on the weekends. Do that on your downtime. Like I always say, just keep that part of you always going. So that's my best advice.
Thank you so much for watching, and thank you, Liz, for taking the time out of your day to come and talk to us. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Oh my goodness, like Liz, you've lived such an amazing life and such an interesting life, and it was very inspiring to hear your stories and everything you've built. And I hope everyone watching enjoyed it just as much as I did, because oh my goodness. Yes. Loved it. But let me know all your thoughts down below. If you have any questions for Liz or me, just leave them down below and we'll get back to you. And I'll see you in the next one. But don't go anywhere, because there'll be Design Talk released once a month for the next year with new guests every episode and a lot of new topics, so you don't want to miss them. With that being said, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.